Welcome back to the channel Valuable Coin History Coin Enthusiasts. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of the 1917 United Kingdom 1 penny, a coin minted during the heart of World War I. This isn't just a piece of bronze. It's a symbol of Britain's history, empire, and everyday life during one of the most challenging times of the 20th century. Stay tuned as we uncover its design, rarity, and the secrets that make this penny a true treasure in the world of coin collecting. Top 5 first up. The 1917 1 penny from the United Kingdom is a coin that carries both historical and numismatic significance. Struck during the reign of King George V, it represents an era deeply shaped by the events of the First World War. The penny, while common in circulation at the time, has become a fascinating collectible because it provides a glimpse into Britain's economy, society, and culture during one of the most turbulent decades of the 20th century. The obverse of the coin features a portrait of King George V, who reigned from 1910 until 1936. The design, created by Bertram Kennel, shows the monarch facing left bareheaded and surrounded by the Latin legend Georgius Vide Gerebrit Omen Rex Effeditif Ind Imp. This translates as George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. This inscription reflects Britain's status as a global empire at the time. The 1917 1 penny was struck in bronze, following a composition introduced in 1860. The alloy was typically 95% copper, 4% tin, and 1% zinc. However, during the First World War, there were occasional slight changes in the mixture due to metal shortages. This wartime context makes the 1917 penny not just a currency item, but also a symbol of resource management during the conflict. The coin had a diameter of 30.81 millimeters and a weight of 9.45 grams, with a smooth, plain edge. These specifications were standard for pennies of the period. Despite its relatively large size compared to modern coins, the penny held relatively low monetary value, serving mainly in everyday transactions for common goods like bread, newspapers, or tram rides. The year 1917 is especially significant because Britain was in the thick of the First World War. The economy was heavily strained, and large quantities of coins were minted to keep up with wartime spending in daily life. Millions of pennies dated 1917 were struck at the Royal Mint in London, ensuring wide circulation across the United Kingdom and throughout the British Empire. Interestingly, the 1917 penny does not have any visible mint mark when struck at the London Mint. However, there is a highly rare variety known as the 1917 kin penny, produced at the King's Norton Metal Company, a private contractor used by the Royal Mint during the war. This variety bears a tiny mint mark KM beneath the date, making it extremely rare and highly sought after by collectors. In circulation, the 1917 penny was heavily used. Because it was a bronze coin, it often developed a dark brown or reddish tone, depending on storage and wear. Collectors today value examples with sharp detail and original mint luster, but these are quite hard to find due to the coin's heavy wartime circulation. The penny was part of the pre-decimal system of British currency, where 12 pennies equaled 1 shilling and 20 shillings equaled 1 pound. This system had been in place for centuries, and the penny was a cornerstone denomination, used in virtually every part of society, from wages to market trade. From a historical perspective, the 1917 penny circulated during a time of great social upheaval. Britain was facing food shortages, rationing, and massive military expenditure. Coins like the penny were a direct connection between the working class and the economy, exchanged daily in shops, factories, and households throughout the country. After the war ended in 1918, many of the pennies from 1917 continued to circulate for decades. In fact, bronze pennies from George V's reign remained in use until the decimalization of 1971, meaning that a 1917 penny could still be found in a child's pocket change more than 50 years after it was minted. Because of their high mintage, most 1917 pennies are not rare in circulated condition. However, what makes this coin intriguing is the existence of those rare mint-mark varieties. For example, the 1917 Knots penny is considered a rarity, and collectors are willing to pay thousands of pounds for well-preserved examples. The artistry of the coin reflects Britain's traditional coinage style, formal, symbolic, and patriotic. George V's portrait, though modest compared to later monarchs, projects a sense of seriousness fitting for a wartime monarch. Meanwhile, Britannia serves as a reminder of Britain's proud naval heritage and global influence. In terms of production, the Royal Mint relied heavily on private contractors during the war to meet demand. The King's Norton Metal Company and the Heaton Mint were both employed in producing blanks and occasionally complete coins. These subcontracted issues are identifiable by their small mint marks and represent an interesting branch of study for numismatists. The coin also highlights the broader story of the decline of bronze coinage. Over time, inflation reduced the purchasing power of the penny, and by the mid-20th century, its large size was seen as inconvenient. Nonetheless, in 1917, it remained an essential part of everyday economic life, accessible to all classes. Collectors today view the 1917 penny as an accessible entry point into early 20th century British coinage. Circulated examples are affordable, often available for just a few pounds, but high-grade or rare mint mark examples can command significant sums at auctions. This duality makes the coin interesting to both casual hobbyists and serious investors. One notable aspect of the 1917 penny is its connection to the transition of empire. While the coin circulated in Britain, it also found its way into colonial territories, where British coins were widely accepted. Thus, a 1917 penny might have been used in India, Africa, or Australia, carrying with it the influence of London's monetary system. The longevity of these coins is impressive. Many survive today in family collections, passed down as keepsakes. Their durability speaks to the robustness of the bronze alloy and the large size of the coin, which helped to withstand decades of wear. In cultural terms, the penny holds a nostalgic place in British memory. For older generations, pennies like the 1917 issue were associated with childhood games, savings jars, and simple pleasures such as buying sweets. Today, they are relics of a world before decimalization, symbolizing continuity with Britain's long monetary past. In conclusion, the 1917 one penny of the United Kingdom is more than just a coin. It is a piece of wartime history, a product of Britain's vast empire, and a collector's item with stories of rarity, artistry, and cultural memory. Whether encountered as a worn piece of pocket change or a gleaming uncirculated treasure, it remains a tangible link to the era of King George V and the struggles and resilience of Britain during the First World War. Next up, the 1921 penny coin from the United Kingdom is a fascinating piece of British numismatic history, minted in the post-World War I era, a period marked by economic hardship, social change, and global transition. This coin carries not only the face of the British monarch, but also the burden and legacy of an empire in evolution. The obverse front of the 1920 penny features the effigy of King George V, who ruled from 1910 to 1936. His portrait was designed by Sir Bertram McKennell, an Australian sculptor, and presents the king facing left, wearing a crownless profile and surrounded by Latin inscription. The inscription around King George V reads, Georges Vide Brit, Omen, Rex Fid, Def Ind, Imp. This translates to George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. It reflects Britain's vast imperial reach at the time. The reverse of the coin features Britannia, the female personification of Britain, seated facing right. She holds a trident in one hand and a shield bearing the Union Jack in the other. This iconic imagery had been used on pennies since 1797. Beneath Britannia sits the year of minting, 1920. The reverse was designed by Leonard Charles Wyon, who inherited the task of continuing his father William Wyon's classic designs during Queen Victoria's era. Made of 95% copper, 4% tin, and 1% zinc, the 1920 penny is part of the pre-decimal British coinage system. Each penny weighed 9.45 grams and had a diameter of 30.8 millimeters, making it quite a large and heavy coin by modern standards. The 1920 penny marks a significant transition point for British coinage. While silver coins saw a reduction in purity that year, from sterling 0.925 to 0.500 fine silver, the bronze penny retained its composition, providing continuity in the base coinage. This period in British history was marked by post-World War I reconstruction. Britain was financially strained from the war effort, and this coin circulated in a time of inflation, unemployment, and shifting social structures. The 1920 penny was minted at the Royal Mint in London, which was a primary minting authority for the British Empire. Unlike some other years, there were no additional mint marks like H for Heaton or Can for Kings Norton. Over 84 million 1920 pennies were minted, making it a relatively common coin in circulation. However, the condition of these coins greatly affects their value today, with mint state examples being much rarer and highly sought after by collectors. Circulation of this penny was widespread, reaching not just the United Kingdom but many of its colonies, where British currency was used, including India, Australia, and part of Africa and the Caribbean. Over time, many 1920 pennies became heavily worn due to extensive use, which makes well-preserved examples with sharp details and little wear, especially valuable to numismatists today. The 1920 penny is often found with signs of environmental wear or corrosion, especially if it spent time buried or in humid climates, which adds another layer of intrigue and challenge for collectors trying to find pristine examples. As with other British bronze pennies, the 1920 coin was demonetized in 1971, when the UK transitioned to decimal currency. It ceased to be legal tender after Decimal Day on February 15, 1971. Despite being demonetized, the 1920 penny remains a highly collectible item due to its historical value, attractive design, and tangible link to Britain's imperial past and King George V's reign. In the collector's market today, a circulated 1920 penny might only be worth a few dollars or pounds, but uncirculated or proof-like specimens can command much higher prices, sometimes exceeding 50 to 100 pounds depending on condition. This coin is also valued as par date sets or as a representative of early 20th century British coinage. Many collectors aim to complete full sets of George V pennies, making each date, including 1920, important in completing the collection. The 1920 penny is also a favorite educational piece among historians and teachers, as it can illustrate the social, political, and economic story of post-World War I Britain in a single object. Coin enthusiasts often use the 1920 penny to compare minting quality across eras, as its large surface makes it easier to appreciate the craftsmanship and detail in both the portrait and Britannia's figure. Ultimately, the 1921 penny coin remains a cherished relic of a bygone age, a token from a time when Britain was redefining itself after war, and coins were not just currency, but symbols of the nation's identity and imperial legacy. Next up, the 1929 one penny of the United Kingdom. This humble copper coin holds more than just face value. It carries a legacy of monarchs, mints, and a time when the British Empire was nearing its peak. So buckle up as we uncover the full story of this historic coin. The 1929 one penny was minted during the reign of King George V, the grandfather of the current monarch, King Charles III. George V ruled from 1910 to 1936, and his coins are renowned for their elegant design and consistent quality. The 1929 penny is no exception. It's a classic piece of British numismatic art. This penny features a left-facing portrait of King George V, created by Bertram McKennell, an Australian-born sculptor who was knighted for his artistic contributions. The king is depicted bareheaded, a traditional approach for coinage at the time. Surrounding his portrait are the Latin words Georges Vide Jare, Brit, Oimen, Rex Fid, Def, Ind, Imp. That Latin inscription translates to George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. It's a mouthful, but it represents the vast reach of the British Empire in 1929. This was still an age when the sun never set on British territories, and the king's image appeared on coins used across the world. Flip the coin over, and you'll see Britannia, the helmeted female figure holding a trident and shield. She had appeared on British pennies since Roman times, and was a powerful symbol of maritime strength and national pride. In 1929, she remained a prominent figure on the reverse of the penny. The design of Britannia was created by Leonard Charles Wyon, and was used with slight modifications for over 100 years. She sits calmly, her trident upright, with a shield bearing the Union Jack at her side. Behind her, Waves lap at the base of her seat, a reminder of Britain's sea power. The 1929 penny was struck in bronze, composed of 95.5% copper, 3% tin, and 1.5% zinc. This composition had been standard for pennies since 1860, replacing the heavier copper versions. Each penny weighs 9.4 grams and has a diameter of 30.8 millimeters, perfectly round and slightly heavier than modern coins. Over 44 million of these pennies were minted in 1929 at the Royal Mint in London. That sounds like a huge number, and it is, but many of these coins circulated heavily and suffered wear, which means high-grade specimens are much harder to find today. The economic context of 1929 also makes this penny special. This was the year of the Wall Street crash, marking the beginning of the Great Depression. While Britain was not hit as hard as the U.S., its economy did slow down. The penny was a vital coin for everyday transactions, from buying newspapers to paying bus fares. By 1929, the design of the penny was starting to feel a bit old-fashioned. New artistic movements were challenging the classical imagery of coins. Still, the British public had grown fond of the traditional George V penny, and there were no major changes until his death in 1936. Collectors often prize 1929 pennies for their historical significance and connection to the final years before global turmoil. Just a decade later, World War II would reshape the world and drastically change coinage across the British Empire. In terms of rarity, the 1929 penny is considered common in circulated grades, but becomes scarce in uncirculated or mint state condition. Coins with a brilliant reddish-brown luster can fetch a much higher price at auction, especially when certified by grading agencies. The value of a 1929 penny depends heavily on its condition. A well-worn piece may be worth less than $1, but a brilliant uncirculated coin can sell for $50 to $150 or even more, depending on market demand. Proof versions, if found, are extremely rare and valuable. Some errors also increase the value. Off-center strikes, doubling, or misaligned dies can turn a common coin into a collectible gem. While error pennies from 1929 are rare, they are highly sought after by serious collectors. The 1929 penny is a popular piece for beginner collectors. It's affordable, easy to find, and opens the door to exploring British coinage. Many collectors start with this coin before expanding to older Victorian pennies or rarer pre-decimal varieties. As British currency transitioned to decimalization in 1971, the old pennies like the one from 1929 were taken out of circulation, but they were never forgotten. They remain iconic in British culture, appearing in nursery rhymes like, "See a penny, pick it up." In fact, the 1929 penny has even been featured in art and jewelry. Some people use it as a lucky charm, while others turn it into necklaces or keepsakes. Its round, solid form and timeless imagery make it perfect for preservation. Whether you're a seasoned numismatist or a casual history fan, the 1929 United Kingdom 1 penny is more than just a coin. It's a snapshot of an empire, a symbol of a king, and a quiet witness to a world on the brink of change. Next up, the 1935 1 penny coin from the United Kingdom holds both historical and numismatic value. Issued during the reign of King George V, this coin represents a period of great transition and modernization in Britain, reflecting both the monarch's legacy and the evolving British Empire. King George V ruled from 1910 until his death in 1936, and his reign was marked by significant events such as World War I, the decline of the British Empire, and major economic changes. The 1935 penny was minted in the final full year of his rule, making it part of his numismatic legacy. The obverse of the 1935 penny features the portrait of King George V facing left. This portrait, designed by Bertram McKennell, had been in use on British coinage since 1911. It showcases a king in a bareheaded style with a calm and dignified expression. The inscription around the portrait reads Georges Vide Jure Brit Omen Rex FID Dif INDIMP, which stand for George V, by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India, a clear reflection of Britain's vast global dominion at the time. The reverse side features the iconic image of Britannia, a symbol of British naval power and unity. She is shown seated facing right, wearing a helmet, holding a trident in one hand and a shield with the Union flag in the other. This design had been used on British pennies since the 17th century. The reverse also bears the inscription 1 penny and the date 1935 at the bottom. The simplicity and clarity of this design contributed to the penny's widespread acceptance and circulation. The coin is composed of 95.5% copper, 3% tin, and 1.5% zinc, giving it a rich reddish-brown hue that deepens with age. Its diameter is approximately 30.8 millimeters. It weighs around 9.4 grams, making a substantial coin in the hand. In 1935, the Royal Mint produced over 56 million pennies, making this a common date among George V pennies. However, its value and desirability among collectors still hold due to its historical context and condition. The economic backdrop of 1935 was one of gradual recovery from the Great Depression. Britain had faced immense financial strain throughout the early 1930s, and coinage played an important role in everyday commerce as most of the population still relied heavily on coins for transactions. Socially, the British public still showed great respect and loyalty to the monarchy in 1935, and George V was a popular and stabilizing figure. His image on coins was a symbol of continuity and trust. Interestingly, 1935 was also the year of King George V's Silver Jubilee, marking 25 years on the throne. While special commemorative coins were issued for the occasion, the regular penny retained its standard design. This makes the 1935 penny unique in that it was minted during a year of national celebration, but did not have a special design variant like other denominations, such as the 1935 rocking horse crown. Collectors today often seek the 1935 penny as part of a full George V collection. It is considered relatively easy to find in circulated condition, but examples in uncirculated or mint state grades are much rarer and more valuable. One factor that affects the value of a 1935 penny is its patina, or the coloration develops over time. A naturally toned reddish-brown or chocolate-brown coin with minimal, whereas more desirable than one that has been cleaned or damaged. There are no major varieties or mint errors known for the 1935 penny, unlike some other dates in the series. However, small differences in strike quality and die can still make some pieces more collectible than others. The 1935 penny continued to circulate in Britain for several decades after its minting, especially during World War II, when metal shortages meant that no new pennies were struck in some years. It wasn't until 1971, with the advent of decimalization in the UK, that the old penny ceased to be legal tender. This marked the end of a long era for this denomination, which had been a part of daily life for centuries. Its historical context, between two world wars at the peak of the British Empire's transformation, makes it a small but significant artifact of its time. It represents not just currency, but the changing identity of a nation. Whether part of a large collection or a single keepsake, the 1935 UK 1 penny is a testament to the enduring legacy of British coinage, the reign of George V, and a pivotal moment in 20th century history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing coin stories. Next up, the 1936 1 penny coin from the United Kingdom holds significant historical and numismatic value. It was minted during the final year of King George V's reign, just before a critical turning point in British royal history. This coin, therefore, marks the end of an era and the beginning of a highly eventful year for the British monarchy. King George V reigned from 1910 until his death in 1936. Coins minted during his reign, including the 1936 penny, feature his left-facing portrait on the obverse front side. This portrait was designed by Sir Bertram McKennell, an Australian sculptor who contributed significantly to British coinage. The reverse back side of the 1936 penny depicts the traditional image of Britannia, seated, wearing a helmet, and holding a trident in one hand and a shield in the other. This design had been a symbol of British strength and naval power for centuries and was a constant on the penny since 1860. The 1936 penny was struck in bronze, like other pre-decimal British pennies of the time. The composition was 95.5% copper, 3% tin, and 1.5% zinc, giving the coin a characteristic reddish-brown hue when new, which would often darken with age and handling. The diameter of the 1936 penny is 30.8 millimeters, and it weighs 9.4 grams. It was a relatively large coin, which made it easy to handle and popular with both collectors and everyday users during its circulation years. The edge of the coin is plain, without any reading or inscription, a standard feature of British pennies at the time. The large, flat surface gave room for the detailed depiction of Britannia, which had become a beloved and iconic symbol. 1936 is known as the Year of Three Kings in British history. Although the penny features King George V, he passed away on January 20th, 1936. He was briefly succeeded by his son, King Edward VIII, who later abdicated in December the same year. His brother, George VI, then ascended the throne. Interestingly, no UK pennies featuring the portrait of Edward VIII were officially released into circulation. However, a few pattern coins trial pieces were produced, making them among the rarest and most valuable British coins today. Therefore, the 1936 penny with King George V's image became the final circulating penny of that era. The mintage of the 1936 penny was approximately 154,152,000 coins. This large number means that the coin itself is not particularly rare today, but its historical connection to a royal transition adds value for collectors. Coins like the 1936 penny were used extensively throughout the British Empire and had considerable purchasing power at the time. A penny could buy small items such as a newspaper, a cup of tea, or a portion of sweets. The 1936 penny is part of the pre-decimal currency system of the United Kingdom, which remained in use until 1971. In this system, 12 pennies made up a shilling and 20 shillings made a pound. The complex system was eventually replaced by a simpler decimal system. Collectors often seek the 1936 penny as a representative of late King George V coinage. Its affordable price and historical context make it an excellent choice for beginners or those focusing on 20th century British coins. The condition of the coin greatly affects its value. A heavily circulated 1936 penny might only be worth a few cents or pence, while a high-grade uncirculated specimen can be worth several dollars or more, depending on its sharpness and luster. Some collectors look for rare varieties or errors in 1936 pennies, although most coins were struck with consistent quality. Double strike errors, die cracks, or off-center strikes are extremely rare but can increase a coin's value dramatically. The legacy of the 1936 penny continues today in educational and historical settings. Schools and museums often use such coins to illustrate the changes in British money, monarchy, and history during the 20th century. Coin dealers and numismatists consider the 1936 penny a key coin when forming a complete collection of George V pennies, which ran from 1911 to 1936. It also fits into broader collections based on British royal history or historical events like the abdication crisis. In media and literature, the 1936 penny has occasionally been referenced as part of depictions of 1930s Britain. The coin, though small, evokes a time of great change, politically, economically, and culturally. Because of its bronze composition, the 1936 penny can develop a beautiful patina over time. Collectors often cherish naturally toned coins, although cleaning is discouraged as it reduces numismatic value.